Hello, everybody. It's Isaac from the Great Lakes. How are you? Tonight, we're going to be talking about Serpent Part 2. And I think the stories that I want to tell involve about how people were turned into serpents under certain circumstances. This is something that's always fascinated me as a child and growing up, was shapeshifting or people that got turned into animals. The serpent, is a very powerful being. And just to recap what I was talking about yesterday, they say that it's over 40 feet long. It's got arms and legs and horns and very powerful, magical. It will eat humans, if they got to. So one of the stories I want to talk about was a story that I heard about 25 years ago from an elder in Sault Ste. Marie. They talked about how the plague came into the village. You see, when the ships would come in, the traders, the trappers, the politicians, the British, the Jagannash, they'd come in with their ships. Of course, the sicknesses that they had would get to the native people. And I remember hearing stories, from elders stating that people weren't allowed to go to the ships because they were going to get sick. So our people knew that. There was a band of Indians down by Agua, and they got hit hard by this plague. From what I remember, they were called the Shingabus clan or tribe, like a duck, a wood duck. That was the name of their tribe. They were Anishinaabeg. The plague moved into their village. Everybody started to get sick. Well, this one man got really sick. He started to have fevers. He started to sweat. He started to get really chilly. They couldn't keep him warm. And it was during one of those fevers that he had a vision. The vision was this lady came to him and told him, what you have to do is you have to take all your clothes off and you have to go into the water and lay there. When you're laying there, all the little animals in the water will come to you and they'll start pecking at you. Let them eat you. As they start pecking at you and start eating you, your body will change. You'll turn into a snake. Once that happens, tell everybody to come. To get rid of that sickness, they have to touch you. If they touch you, they have to go right in the water. Then they'll be healed. So he woke up from his incredible fever, and he's like, and the dream, it was as clear as day. So he just took off his clothes. He told his old lady, I think I'm going on a journey here. I need to go do this thing according to this dream. And he did. He went to the lake naked and he laid there. And he's just started floating in the shoreline like this. All of a sudden, little minnows came. Little water bugs came. Little bloodsuckers came. All these little animals came and they started pecking at him, just like what that lady told him in the dream. Sure enough, he noticed his legs start to turn black. And they started to get little scales on them. And his legs just started to get together like this. And they start to rub against each other. Next thing you know, his legs, they start to form a tail, like a snake's tail. Pretty soon, his whole bottom part of his body was a snake, and it was just swimming in the water. He told his wife, go get everybody, tell them to come here. If they want to live, they have to touch me. So she did. She went there and she told everybody in the village, my old man is turned into a snake. If you touch him, then you'll live. And so lots of people in the village came down to the beach where he was laying. And they all just went into the water. They were all sick. Their faces were turning black. They were sick from the plague. And they went in there and they all waited together. And they all were all like swarming amongst each other in there. They were all crying because they were going to die. And they all touched that man. When it was done, that man said, if there's nobody left, I have to go. And of course, he made a jump like this, splash into the water, and he swam away. They never seen him again. But everybody that touched him got cured. And it was because of that dream that he had of that woman that came to him. Those that didn't touch him, they died. You know, I went to that burial site. I was taken there, up by Agua Bay. There is little houses there where those people died. Lots of people died. It was a tough, tough time for them. They dug a great big hole in the ground and they just put the bodies inside there. They couldn't have individual burials because so many of them died. They just had to throw them in a big hole. That's what happened. I seen that. I seen where those graves were. And that's what happened. That's when that man got turned into a snake. It was that woman that turned him into one. And he saved his village. But you know what, though? I'm going to tell you another story of what happened when somebody got turned into a snake. This happened a long time ago. And they say that in a place called Bomgiizhik, which is where I'm from, there's a place called Ishbugmut. It's like a high rock. There was a little boy playing on that rock. It was a good blueberry place. But he was there playing, him and his little friend. They were sitting there picking berries, having fun, laughing, pushing rocks around, causing a bit of a racket. All of a sudden, they seen something behind a rock. It was a little ear that just went like this. They were curious. What was that? They went over there. And sure enough, there was a tiny little baby wolf. Tiny little baby wolf. They're like, oh, let's grab this wolf. They grabbed that little puppy. They started playing with it. Let's take this home. So they did. They took that wolf home. And they were playing with it in the wigwam. All of a sudden, one of the elders said, hey, that's not a dog. That's a baby wolf. Where'd you get that? Oh, we got that at Ishbugmut. That's where it was. You put that back. That's a very sacred place. There's things that live inside those rocks. You're not supposed to bother anything there. What were you doing there? I don't know. We'll put it back. So, of course, they went back to that mountain with that baby wolf. And there is a big crack in that mountain. They call that crack Doshkopkok. They put that wolf in that crack. But that crack goes down. And that little baby wolf fell in there. And they couldn't get it out. And that baby wolf died. It died in that crack. But the boys didn't want to say anything. They didn't want to tell anybody because they knew they made a mistake. So they just went back to Bomgiizhik, back to the village. Well, the next day, everybody woke up. They're like, oh, I got a stomach ache. My stomach hurts. Nobody knew why. Was it a stomach flu? Who knows? Maybe it was something they ate. At that particular time, nobody knew it was wrong. But oh my goodness, all of a sudden you looked at their stomach and you could see something moving inside their stomachs. The whole village was like that. It was pretty scary what happened. Then all of a sudden, one person fell down and started shaking back and forth. They start to wiggle around on the ground. And next thing you know, their bodies start to turn into a snake. Then another person dropped. Then another person. Then another person. Next thing you know, everybody was dropping. Snakes were coming out of their mouth. Next thing you know, the whole village, almost all of them, got turned into snakes. And they started to make a big ball. That great big ball of snakes, it started to travel towards that mountain. And that's where it went. Snakes were falling off, but they just get back on again. And finally, it disappeared into that mountain. It went into that crack. Doshgopgok. The whole village almost got turned into snakes. That's what happened. There was only 2 survivors. There was 2 women that were on their menstrual cycle. They were on the outside of the village. They weren't affected. They never got turned into snakes. The rest of them, they were done. They say that they went to Birch Island, which is not too far from us. They went to Birch Island and they told them what happened. They said our village got turned into snakes. And that's the story. There was a consequence for going to that sacred site and pushing rocks over and, taking animals from there. So when I was living in my community, we knew not to bother those things. That was a forbidden place to go there because you only went there to do spiritual business. You didn't go there to play. There was human remains also at that mountain. There was human bones there. There's also a cave and a serpent that lives in that lake there. So as Nishnabek, we know that some of these places are not for us. Only people that are specially educated and that sort of stuff will go there for special reasons. Not everybody will go there. It's not for everybody. Today there's a sacred site and everybody is going over there, with their canned salmon and their pennies. Sometimes things are just meant to be left alone, Okay, I'm going to tell you one more story. This next story is a story of when a serpent, started to eat people. So yesterday I talked about how a serpent saved somebody. We talked about how people got turned into serpents. Now I'm going to tell of when a serpent started to eat people and why they ate them. They say this happened in recent times. Recent, within the last 500 years. It happened, there's memories of this happening like it was yesterday. Whenever I hear this story, it's like it happened not too long ago. When they told this story, they made it sound like it was just a little while ago. But they say years ago, they seen a serpent in the lake. There was an old lady that was in her wigwam, and she looked out at the lake and she seen these horns going across the river. There used to be an old village there, Bomgiizhik. The place where the serpents are written is what that village is called. Not too far from there, there's another rock. It's called Mindigwehasan. But right at that place there, that's where this old lady was. She looked into the river, and they called that place Nadwat. But at that particular place, she seen that thing swimming across with those horns. She told her husband, "Honey, there's something outside I think you need to see." He looked right away, and sure enough, it was a big serpent. He looked real hard. Oh, it has something in its mouth. She just covered her mouth. Oh my God, who is it? It's a man. It has a man in its mouth. And so, of course, everybody in the village, they knew that something was happening. They did a body count. Who's here? Who's hunting? Where did they go? Who's missing? And it was determined at that council that several of the men were missing. Their bodies were gone. And they noticed in the trees, there was pathways that they never seen before. The serpent was eating them. And so, of course, the medicine people, they were called upon to try to understand why they were being eaten. You can't run from something like that. You can't get away from it because your whole life is on the water. It's not like you can, go to Saskatoon. Not back in those days. There's just no way you can escape something like that. So they had a council, and it was agreed to have a G-scan, a shaking tent, to try to figure out what happened, why these men were being eaten. And they called upon a man to come and do this. And they say he was small, he was very old, and his wife would help him. And they went into that lodge, and they say that that shaking tent was just going back and forth, back and forth. And sure enough, he came out with the answer. He said, that snake is eating us, and it won't stop until everybody's dead. We can't run from it, as it's too big and it's too strong. I've been told to go up to Tikanaganning, those cradle rocks up there. To those rocks, there's a little person that lives inside that rock. Bomgiizhik is that little person's name, the little wild one. I'm going to go there and make offerings to Bomgiizhik, that little person, and see if they can kill that snake. So that's what he did. He went up to Tikanaganning, that rock. He put some offerings there. He started to talk to that rock. Open up for me. My people are dying. The snake will eat all of us. You're so powerful. You're the only one that can save us. All of a sudden, that rock, it just opened up. And sure enough, there was a little person in there. And a young person. That medicine man told that little person everything. Said, my people are scared. We're dying. I give you these gifts. Bomgiizhik said, I accept these gifts. Look at my arrows. I'm very good at shooting. Look at my bow. I'll take on the challenge. Bomgiizhik ran across those rocks they called Tikanaganning and jumped right into Nadswat, right into that spot. All of a sudden, the water started to splash. It was going this way, back and forth, back and forth. Quick, zhuang. All of a sudden, blood just started to bubble up. And that serpent just laid there on top of the water. And of course, Bomgiizhik jumped out with his arrows and his bow and said, I killed that snake. But he also told them, I killed it because I wanted the horns. But its family will come back for you if you don't make your offerings. The reason why it was killing those men was because you weren't making your offerings. And so it started to take the men. And pretty soon it was going to take the children. You're very lucky. So, of course, the people in the village were happy and they were thankful and they were reminded to make their offerings. That serpent, it washed up on this near this island. They call it Noble Island. It washed up there. And of course, the village people went there to that serpent. The horns were already gone because that little person took them. But they cut that serpent open all down its stomach. And they took the blood from that serpent and they painted what happened. And they actually painted that serpent, a 40-foot serpent they painted on the rock with that blood. That's why they call the village, that old village, Bomgiizhik, the place where the serpents are painted on the rock. That's why it's called that. That's why those pictographs are there. It's a very sacred place. And that's what happened. So my people were reminded how important those offerings were. We cannot live our life on the land and the rivers and the lakes without our offerings. The land insists upon generosity. It insists upon a constant giving back. When we don't do that, we will die. There's no question. But sometime later on, at that same spot, that same village, my people forgot about that again. There was 2 men that were swimming on that river. They were told, don't swim there. There's a serpent hole there. But they wanted to do it. This happened in my grandfather's time. Those 2 men wanted to do it. They were swimming in there. One of them had a Mickey. Oh, and you know, when you're all Mickeyed up, you don't want to listen to nobody. Oh, there is nothing here. There's nothing down there. We want to swim here. Don't tell us what to do. You know, you get all tough, you know, after you have a little bit of Mickey. Sure enough, they're swimming down those little rapids, going back and forth. All of a sudden, that real dark one, he goes down. And he never came up. This bubble came up after him, after he went down, a great big bubble. And it just stunk. His partner got scared and said, oh no, what happened to my friend? So he dove in. Same thing. He never came back up. Just one great big bubble. And when that bubble hit the top of the water, it just popped open and it just released a very stinky smell. It just smelled like, almost like dead bodies. That's what they say. And they disappeared. Those 2 guys disappeared. Then, of course, you know, somebody was watching from a distance and seen what happened. And so they called a medicine person to come. And they had a ceremony to try to find out what happened. And it was the serpent. He said the serpent took those men because we weren't making our offerings. We forgot. We knew this, but we forgot. And now these men are gone. And I'll try to get them back. So in that shaking tent, he tried to negotiate with that serpent, but that serpent said, I'll bring one back, but I'll keep the other one. I'll keep the black one for myself. And that's what happened. The other body washed up on shore. It had sticks and wedged in its ears, 2 sticks going up its nose, and in its mouth, there was a great big black stone, and there was clay wobbling in its eyes, jammed in its eyes. They say the reason why that body was prepared like that was so that it wouldn't tell what it's seen or heard, so that it wouldn't be able to talk. Our people were reminded again that, of course, you have to make your offerings to the land. And that's what happened. And it was and so I was there. My grandfather was a boy when this happened, and he took me to that spot. He told me the whole story. He said, "This is what happened." He says, "I was a boy. I was part of the search party trying to find those bodies." And so, that's just a reminder, I guess, to my people that we have to be consistent with our offerings to the serpent. So yes, they could save us, but they can also take us if we don't act right. I think about that right now. Are we acting right now? Are we acting in a way that is consistent with our waters? And the answer is probably no. And so I keep thinking about my daughter. I keep thinking about future generations. It's really important for us to go back, as much as we can to be earth people again. Right now, our people are very political. They're extremely political. And it's like, oh my God, policies ain't going to save us. Frameworks ain't going to save us. Politics ain't going to save us. It's our ceremonies. It's our way of life. It's our relationship with the water, with the serpents, with all those beings. That's what's going to save us. And so there's one more long story I wanted to say tonight, but it's probably too long. But tomorrow night I'll be back and I will share part 3 of Serpent Stories. The one I'm going to talk about tomorrow is when my village got haunted and they had to relocate because of a serpent. And I'll also talk about when a baby was stolen and how they got it back. But anyway, thank you for listening to me tonight. Let's keep these ideas going. Let's keep the serpent things going because I think it's really important for us this time of year. So have a great night. Thank you for tuning in and watching. And we will talk to you tomorrow. So thank you very much. Bomgiizhik. It's been an honor. In the parking lot, Serpent Stories, Isaac from the Great Lakes. See you.